Hello, it's a beautiful morning to every beautiful and handsome people out there. This is Daybreak Africa on KAFTAN television. My name is Odunayo.
And my name is Ikhonede Joshua Adeji. Welcome once again to Daybreak Africa. This is a beautiful morning, especially to those that, according to the eyes of the beholder, are not extremely beautiful and handsome. We also relate with you as well, too, So you are still valued as well.
You're beautiful. Yeah, everybody, everything that God creates is beautiful and wonderfully made. So.
But you are just being specific. You said the beautiful and the handsome. So definitely, I know there are.
Because I know everybody.
Okay, everybody is beautiful. Well, everybody is beautiful though. Even though it's beautiful actually.
In your own way. In your unique way.
In your unique way. Alright, welcome back to the show. Just joined us. This is still Daybreak Africa, and yes, we are on to our discussion for today. I hope you enjoyed the reports, by the way, that we sent to you. Now, one of the most trending stories from last week was the fact that, according to the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, they say Nigeria's headline inflation rate slightly dropped to 23.71% in April 2025, down from 24.3% in March. Same 2025 actually, and this is one of the things that we'll be looking at because of the fact that one of the things that Nigeria is kind of experiencing this particular time is one of what I term the very stubborn inflation that seems never to go down. But NBS announced that this increase in its consumer price index recently, and that the fact that this inflation is dropping because if you are observant enough, there's been a drop in the prices of food items and the likes in the country at this particular time. That is according to statistics. Well, it could be argued, who knows, but when the NBS are giving this kind of statistics, we can still just stay there. So today we'll be looking more about the genuinity. We'll be looking more about some of the policies put in place to ensure that this inflation is maintained, and from then on we'll progress to the fact that if you check the 2025 budget, Nigeria has promised themselves that, according to the budget actually, that we are going to get to as low as 15% when it comes to inflation in the year 2025. We'll be looking at this as well. Can they actually meet their 2025 targets, which will be our main focus? To discuss with us today, our economist is in the studio with us in the person of Alphonsus, Uchenna. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
It's good to have you actually. Yeah, so now they are talking about the fact that inflation as at April, that's according to the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, has come down to as low as 23.7%, down from 24.31%. Now, what's your take on this? Do you think this is genuine from your own perspective?
Thank you very much. From my own perspective, before I say my own notion about my own personal view about the reduction, I would have loved to raise a question for them to show us the indicators. I think there should be an indicators that makes them reach a kind of compromise within them that the reduction of these 23% as per inflation is very real. Anyway, just like you said, actually, it might actually be real. It might. I'm not saying it is. It might, based on that, because I don't really trust the report on that, because I wouldn't say how they went about their survey, because I know the best thing that should be done is implementing a kind of survey to actually see if this reduction is real or not. Though there are a lot of contradicting issues on this path, just like what is practicable as far as the market is concerned. Now, in concerning sense that what do they really carry out a survey in the market to show that this reduction that has taken place really have an effect on the poor masses?
Exactly.
That should be the point here, and that should be the only indicator that we have. So based on that, I still question the genuinity of that statistics.
So you are saying that in as much that there is no effect in our marketplaces.
Of course, yes.
So you are trying
on
to...
more serious note.
But some of the things that they talk about on this whole book was the fact that if you go to the markets, they even particularly pointed out some
quantities,
food products actually, which they talked about the fact that, according to the statistics, they said food inflation rate drops to 21%, and from what they say, the NPS further said that the food inflation rate in 2025 was 21.36% on a year-on-year basis, and they said that The significant decline in the food annual inflation figure is technically due to the change in the base, that is for this year. And on a month different rating, they said that the decrease can be attributed to the rate of decrease in the average prices of this particular product, maize or corn flour, wheat grain, rice is there actually,
beans is there,
okra dried, yam flour, soya beans, bambara beans, and the brown beans actually. So they said there was a reduction in this particular food items. Recently though, there are people talking about the fact that the bag of rice now is down to
reduced
to
what now?
Okay, now that miracle is
I
confirmed.
I heard about it too, that the
they said it's 54,000 naira now.
54,000 naira.
That is what some people said. Me, I've not gone to the market.
I'm not too sure, but I also heard.
You see, the last about last week, I made my own investigation. I was told it's 70 or 60 something like 70
That was last
thousand.
week.
That was last week. You see, one thing I always say, the way Nigeria is being structured in the sense that we find it difficult to actually probe, or will I say believe or trust on the genuinity of all these reports. That is what I am actually laying emphasis on.
And do you feel like we should blame them?
And you know one thing again now, still on the structure of our country, the way they've structured it, their activities are not meant to be trusted again, because of what do we call it? Because, like I said, the agency who has actually given this report, I so much believe, might not really want to go against the government.
The government. Because they are not really an independent.
Because the system, what we practice in the system, all agencies are actually linked up to what we call political patronage. That is our fear. If they're actually independent, of course we can actually believe that. And you see the report we are getting, actually you just said you heard about is 50-something thousand. That means it's even left for us to actually go out there and make our own findings. So it is our findings, it is the report we'll get from the final consumers that will make us believe that yes, this is actually real. So every report about inflation or deflation that will come up should be a report that is actually enacted or should be replaced to our final consumers. Because even looking at the concept of production, they said the last chain of production is what? It's final consumers. Yes. They are very decisive. Yes, it's until goods gets to them that you could call yourself a producer. Without them in the chain of production, there's no productive activity that's happened.
But I actually think that all those retailers and wholesalers, they are to blame in all of this, because it's like they're just taking decision on their own.
Yes, I'm still going there.
Okay.
I'm still really going there. That is why I said, in fact, look at the actual fine in the reports. They actually outline some commodities involved, which are mainly food stuff.
Yes.
With that, you can see there's a kind of scope, there's a kind of restriction on the products that is being affected. And when we're talking about inflation or deflation, it should be generality of all products. It should be.
Okay.
It should not be restricted to only some products. Though it's a kudos on them if actually the report is genuine. Like I said on my own part, I am still doubting the genuinity because I have not made my own survey.
Okay.
Probably if I get out of here and go straight to the market and I see that a bag of rice is 50-something thousand, I say, wow. I might come back here and say, wow, it is real, based on the aspect of food. But we have other product also that is not really affected. But truth be told, when we are talking about inflation, it should be based on the generality of all the products that our citizens are actually consuming. It should not be restricted to food alone, though we know that food is the most important thing.
Yes.
So you're saying things like data, because everybody knows data prices have increased.
Yeah.
Then I also a friend ranting about.
Now let me take you back. Let me take you back a bit. Before the inception of this inflation, it was something that has happened. It is traceable down to the removal of fuel subsidy. When it was removed, what happened? Every commodities
went up.
So if you're actually claiming that yes, there is a progress as per the reduction of inflation to 23%. It should be applicable to all the products, not just product alone, even services. It should be applicable to all that. Then if we have done that, yes, we can give ourselves kudos that yes, there is a progress in the market structure. There should be a progress. So if you actually affected, if only a particular goods is being affected, to me, it's not really justifiable. It's not really justifiable. There are other services that we can do without. That is a hike there also.
But then, so one of the things that thrills me the most is bodies like NBS and co. Sometimes knowing fully well that the economy is not just food. There are other factors.
There are other factors.
I was asking myself a question yesterday, transport workers especially. I saw how Dangote keeps reducing the price of his fuel every day, and all that. The fuel now is at 825 from Dangote. NNPC has reduced theirs to 900. I think in Abuja it's 910 naira right now.
For the transporters.
But the transporters, the same price it was when the fuel was 1,1.
It's still the same.
It's still the same price it is
that
now that the fuel is 910.
They will buy tire, they will do this.
Those ones don't go down.
Can you see what I'm trying to say?
Because I was looking at it that the reduction was just 0.52 according to the inflationary bodies, and I feel, is it that the government is just leaving too many factors or market fundamentals? They are just leaving it to follow and just writing statistics from their observations from afar.
Obviously, that is what me on a personal note I think is very applicable. That's what they are just doing. Like I said in the first place, political patronage is the order of the day. Nobody will want to give reports. Nobody will want to give a kind of statistics that will negate the ruling government now, which obviously should be the other way around. I am not condemning the government now. I'm not condemning our leaders. But the person I can see that they are trying their best, they are trying to put down some policies, be it monetary policies, be it fiscal policies, to actually make sure there is stability in the price of goods and services. Now the question is, I am not there. If that is actually their wish, if they are actually willing to dispose this so that consumers will be at rest, then they needed more activities to do, which has to do with some of the wholesalers and retailers who are unjustly fixing prices, who are unjustly not actually letting that final consumers to actually experience or have a taste of this reduction.
So you feel like even after giving the law or whatever, there should be a follow-up.
There should be a follow-up
from those leaders.
On a more serious note, there should be a follow-up. Some agency should be set up to go straight to the market.
Without being biased.
Yes, without being biased. To go there as a spy and know how much these commodities have been sold to the people. Because if you are looking at government, we said we are practicing democracy. It's the government of the people.
Yes.
So the people should be put in first, and not them.
But then, do you think the federal government alone can solve this issue?
They cannot. Of course, they cannot do. They can't do.
I'm looking at the reason that they have to give up local government. They have to even start up what they call the local government autonomy to ensure that at least it gets to the final consumers and co. And to a very large extent, aside from the local government, there is the state government there. There are senators, there are House of Representative members there. Now, it seems it's only the federal government trying to play any role, and the role is just becoming too boisterous for them at the top. Now, do you think local government chairmen, especially state governors too as well, do you think they can play a very vital role to reducing this?
They have more role to play because they are closer to the masses. They are actually they should be the implementing agencies that should do more of the work as per implementation. Not just the federal government. On their part, they are doing. But on their part also, they are to set up a watchdog for the state government. Then the state government do the same to the local. That's the way it should be. They should be at that flow. But most often, because of political patronage, nobody actually wants to query the other. But that shouldn't be so. Of course, you can't leave the whole job for the federal government. Basically, what they do most is to implement those policies. But the fact remains that if anything goes wrong, we have to hold them responsible. Everybody will always hold them responsible. Therefore, that not to exist actually, haven't implemented those policies or haven't enacted those policies, so to say, they already need to also create a system of follow-up to make sure that the poor masses are actually benefiting the policies that have been put in place. Look at what happened recently and this during COVID-19. You know what happened? You know palliatives that were given. What happened? Does it really get to the poor masses? These are just palliative. How much more these policies that will be of benefit to the poor masses? And you think the inflow of those policies will get directly to us? It will not get directly to us. If the activities of those middlemen, the state government, all the home agencies are not checked, they really need to be checked. And anybody being caught should be dealt with seriously. Because if not, they will be held accountable. If not, we'll crucify them and will not applaud any of their policies.
All right, so I want us to talk about this because I know that many of those people that are selling things at the market and that have businesses, the majority of them are as one club or the other, association of people that sell gari, association of people that sell one or two things. So do you think that the government should go to them one-on-one, have a conversation with them, come to a conclusion to make things better? Because in their meeting, they already agreed that if you are not selling at this price, there are some things that will happen, causes.
You see this thing you said now is one of the things that thrills me anytime I go to the market. Now, you see unions, and something even happened to my own in-law. She sells, this one, not even food items. These are medicines. She owns a pharmacy. And products are there. She wanted to sell at multiple different prices because she has direct with one of the pharmacies top pharmacies in Oshun and all that. So drugs are way cheaper there. So she brings it in, sells at. The next thing we saw, the association
they will come for her. They will definitely come for her because
and began to even down to the market. I know someone from an associate of mine who at the market sells her own product at a cheaper price because she herself owns the farm. So she goes to pick her products from her farm herself to come sell, and they are these tomatoes that everybody's buying at a very, she's selling at a way cheaper price. They all came and this is removing competitiveness from the market. So how do we address such an issue?
The same price you heard from me, you hear from B, you hear from C, the same.
You see, yes, I know that is what is actually in the system. And this thing started lately and it's getting to the peak now. And I so much believe our leaders are very much aware about this. I will tell you, a good number of them also had influence in the appointment of these local leaders or associations. They have influence there. I said in the first place that most of these things are actually cupped into this poor menace we call political patronage. Either you like it or not, the Yaloja or the Babaloja, I don't know what they call them.
Yes.
They have a take. They have a take in governance. But what baffled me, what seems to be very irritating, is that most of their take has nothing to do with the people they govern, rather than it is their own selfish interest. On a more serious note, even with the existence of the association, it's a very good idea, it's a very brilliant idea. Why I said it's a very good idea is the best way. It's the best way at which government can actually work directly with them to make sure that most of the policies they enact up there are actually benefiting to the poor populace. Let's be practical a bit, because most of these things actually are solutions, are possible solutions, are possible suggestions to curb inflation. But like I said in the first place, I so much believe, I know most of these things, solutions I would suggest or I've been suggesting are something they would have implemented. But because of the corrupt practices of some of them who doesn't have the love of the people at heart, because of their selfish interests, would not make most of these policies work. Because how do you rate, or what are the indicators to actually applaud a particular leader or a particular government? Is the reactions from what? From the people. It's the reaction for the people.
And when the reaction is not right.
On the most serious note, how do I give kudos? Let's say, for instance, now, the government of the day actually implemented that health should be free. If Tinubu say health should be free, of course, Tinubu will not come down to those states to actually see if it is really free or not. It will be free. That is if he says so. Would you believe even right inside the government hospitals, some funny practices will also come up. So that is why it is left for him not just making the policy alone, but constituting a serious task force to make sure that this is really free. Anybody who deviates from that should be dealt with seriously. If they can catch one person, second person as a scapegoat, you see everything will be normal. But reverse is the case. In your constituency or your area as a Yaloja, you have really helped me to actually assume my offices. How do I now come after you? That is what is in practice, political patronage. But it shouldn't be. But then, the people that you put in the constitution are the people.
But then all these things are normal democratic processes. Because honestly, someone made a statement and said, you see, one of the problems democracy gave you is more politics than government. More politics than government, because of the fact that you won't always play to the theatrics of the majority and the opinion leaders. So I don't know how the government is going to do that, because honestly, if I get into the black books of the Yaloja, because this is a funny phenomenon in Nigeria that I began to observe lately. If you ask most Nigerians, what does it mean if the government favors you, or if the government is doing well? It's something that has to do with their own pockets and how much they were able to gain when the government was in power. Not many people talk about the fact that when this guy was in power, there was road, people were prospering, there was some policies that opened up the market to us. So if I now come to the same people that I'm trying to help, they always feel as if you have to give me money or something that will make me earn more money, because I have the people that can give you the. So it's more like I'm buying votes from you. So because I'm buying vote, I must always be on your good books. Now, with this kind of analogy, do you think with the kind of democracy we practice in Nigeria, a time will ever come where prices will actually come down totally to a point that at least everybody has a fair chance towards wealth and prosperity?
You see, of course, like I said, if the needful is done, price will definitely come down. And you even aware that most of this inflation are not even coming from the government, but people in the lower places, like the bank association you're talking about. At times, most of these menace, most of this shambles that is happening, the government might not really be aware also. And if they are not aware, that means they should be held responsible, because that means they're not really doing their job. As simple as ABC, like I said in the first place, you have the association already. You can work directly with the association. There are a lot of provisions that could be done. And that is what is applicable in most of the developed countries when it has to do with subsidies. I think the only subsidy we know what to do is on fuel. No, there should be subsidy for other products, especially food items. Especially food items. Like bags of rice, the prices of bags of rice can be subsidized directly from the producer. You can give up or give some grant to the producers. Having a kind of MOU, help us sell to our people at this price. Then let them be follow up. Even when it comes straight down to the Yalojas also, they should know there is a tag already that this price should be sold for this. Irrespective of the price, they will still make their own profit, even not for selfish interest. They will still definitely make their own profit.
But do you feel like that can just work?
It can work. It's very simple.
Without the government support, because I feel like
the government has to support. Like I said, the government has to support.
Not enough. Okay.
The government has to support. The whole thing shoulders, the whole issues should be shouldered by the government. If I am the president, for instance, and I actually want to curb the problem of inflation in Nigeria, aside the normal fiscal policy, because there are a lot of solutions. There are some policies aside the normal policy, fiscal policies or monetary policies, there are other activities that should come up. The issue of subsidizing the price. Of course, as the president, I am not a producer. There may be a lot of firms who does this production. And that's just a fact. How do I go about it? I may even have 2 to 3 firms. I may not leave it for only one person. You know, at some point, we have some producers here enjoying what to call monopolistic power. It's not good. It's not really good. It should not be everything should not be monopolized. if we have different producers of rice, if we have 5 to 10 producers of rice, there will be competition among them. Yes, there will be competition. Then what do I do is, okay, I've invited them actually, I have them. There are a lot of things I can do for them to make sure that the price of rice goes down. Tax holiday, the tax being levied on them can be reduced.
Tractors can be made available.
It can be made available.
Fertilizer
Can be made available to them. It's as simple as that. It depends on the compromise being reached. If that is actually done, then it's straightforward. There is not left for them to constitute what we call tax office. Even without tax office, it's possible. I don't see any reason whereby a price cannot, although it's happening. I know some products whereby they fix the normal price. They didn't go about it. I don't see any reason why a bag of rice, the fixed price cannot be there. Maybe 60,000, it should be stick there. Then publicity
should be made.
If people know that this price is this, the government said they should set this by this, and if government have done their own part, yes, to be made. I still believe it's very, very simple. I still believe it's simple.
Well, we'll come back to that actually. Let's take Go Start quickly, and after our Go Start, we'll come back to our discussion. So this is where we go for Go Start, where they teach you 1 or 2 things and inspire you to do in business. You can also be very involved in the markets too at this particular time, and you don't even need to have as much capital as possible. But then on Go Start, we inspire you to this. So enjoy Go Start. After Go Start, we'll come back to this discussion. Please stay with us. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to the show. If just joined us, it's still Daybreak Africa. I hope you enjoyed Go Start. I hope you learned something from there. I hope you're inspired to do something with your business life. I hope you're inspired to work out with that which you have at this particular time, because every time in this life, no time presents us the best time to do anything. The best time actually is the time you decide to start. So with your time, start now. Time is ticking. But before we went on a short break, we've been discussing on a drop in the inflation in Nigeria, and one of the asked questions there is, can we actually meet our 2025 targets, which I want to even bring to your table, Mr. Uche. I was trying to ask about the forces of demand, which we, forces of demand and supply, which we grossly discussed. And one of the things that is still bedeviling the country is this issue of insecurity, which for someone like me, I feel is overreported. Not underreported now. Many might disagree with me for this, but the way I'm looking at the whole thing, I know that with the security taking a huge bunch of the budget and everything, I think it's just a story kept recurring, so that people can fund whatever lifestyle. Is a lot of politics attached to that aspect. One of the things we are looking at here is the fact that when it comes to the area of very important stuffs like food, especially, the supply is quite lower than the demands that we are finding in the market, which I think to a very large extent has caused high inflation into that aspect. And looking at these two, I saw something recently that last week particularly that seemed like more of an advantage to the Nigerian economy too. Our trade deficit was kind of high. That is, our export was higher than our imports this particular time. And aside from the fact that our export being higher, some of the things that were exported majorly in this country in large quantity was food, and the country does not have food. So there is no sufficiency within, but we are taking them out. And there is still insecurity bedeviling the whole country, not making people go to their farms, get as much product as we can for the markets. Now, how do we resolve these forces of demand supply, aside from the fact that we don't even have a database?
On the most serious one, that is more reason why we know that report is very faulty. Report that our export is higher than our import is a big lie. That is not true. Because if our export can be more than our import, that means Nigeria is a developed country. On the most serious note, I don't know when it's going to come up. On the most serious note,
no statistics and
no. The report is the report is fake. The report is fake because I know nothing has been put in place. As far as I'm concerned, up to date, the import is more than our export. Now, let us actually, based on the question you actually raised, though I already negated that factor, because it's not going to be possible also if we're exporting goods and those goods being exported, we cannot benefit from. We have shortage. It's when we have surplus that we export to others. That's just the same. That is just the truth. So it's not our. It's like, what are we even producing? How do you arrive that as a conclusion that our export is more than? I think the only thing we produce is just food items, and not just all food items. Not all. We have other countries who do the same thing. And following comparative cost advantage, that is an implementing factor everywhere. How many of the countries are really patronizing Nigeria now?
Because our products don't have the kind of marketing that's...
They're not even patronizing on as such. They're not. Except for individuals, establishments. Who does the exploitation by themselves? I know some companies, even in those states.
Companies,
Who, that happens that their products, even all their products are not being consumed in Nigeria. Their products are exported for further production out there. Except those ones. And even inclusive with those ones, we cannot just conclude that fact that in Nigeria, export is greater than import. No. It is not even equal. It's not equal. So which means at this point in time, we still have what we call unfavorable balance of payments. BOP. We still have unfavorable balance of payments. So that's
but sometimes I feel, why is it that they always try to do, because honestly I'm even trying to even work on some projects, some research on how they come about their statistics and all that based on many factors, because somehow I feel the presidency, from their own desk, from their table, they've done everything they need to do. Sometimes you see some of the plans of the presidency down to their monetary policies. It was lately I began to even appreciate the policy of the high interest rate.
Of course, yes.
On a more serious note, recently we are saying the fact that even the tax reform bill is coming to fruition, and some other things, because of, though I know the issue of VAT hasn't yet been totally resolved, but it will be resolved. And even if they affirm it, they are still going to go back to readjust and make some adjustments. But then, from the presidency, from that desk, it seems a lot has been done, and it seems the story they feed the presidency is that of success, but that people are not really experiencing the kind of success they are talking about. So now, I don't know how they
that is at the very beginning. That is at the beginning when you asked me of my own perspective about the notion to actually validate that report, and I said on a personal note, I cannot validate that report being given. Why? Is because even the common man, nobody has a trust on our leaders anymore. Because the whole Nigerian politics, I tell you, is a very pure game. When things goes wrong, they said it's right. And every sectors who are claiming that it is right, just like you said, they will always report success for Mr. President.
So he's even a victim.
Yeah. Because the whole system is corrupt.
Right.
That is why if you have to make our research at times, you see most of our number one citizens are already doing their best. But the people they have actually appointed to implement most of these policies are not really doing anything. Corruption everywhere. We have seen a situation whereby a governor went to a particular place to commission a project. He turns back and his people come back and move that project away. So what are we saying? So the whole system is corrupt, and that is why we're having this issue day in, day out. Even despite the fact that all of us know the solutions that could be enacted. It's simple. Now, looking at that solutions now, because I always wonder, like you said in the first place, when I asked that, what are the indicators to really affirm this fall in inflation? There are a lot of indicators that could be put in place, mechanisms that could be put in place. Now, the issue of high interest rates. I have not gone to the bank to get a loan. I don't know how visible that is. Be it high interest rates, which is part of the fiscal policy, which part of monetary policy, and that of reduction of government spendings. It has something to do with inflation.
Yeah.
It really has a lot to do with inflation. That is where I will hold them responsible. Our leaders. Have they really tried to reduce
government spending?
Because you see, when there are too much money in circulation, inflation tends to be high. That is the scenario. But if they want to curb this inflation, they should reduce their spendings, because we have a lot of wastage on their part, unnecessary spendings on their part. It's very huge. I cited examples last time we discussed. I don't know the topic about that vice president erecting another building for him. That is trash.
At this particular time.
Because in the budget there is always maintenance already for all these things. So why should we erect a new one? What has happened to the old one? Do you know how many billions
They have to invest in.
They have to invest in that. The investment on that, if they had used it and push it or pull it up to other sector, do you know the good it would have happened? A whole lot of that. Like I said, how do you say, why will you have, when you have a new administration, if you have a new members in the House of Rep, if you have a new senators, why do you have to change their cars?
Why can't they
These are trash.
Why are they even wealthy guys before they became?
They made it already. So why do you have to change their cars? Why do they have to fly abroad for treatment? It's not their personal money, it's government money. So there are a lot of wastage. It's very glaring.
Why at all we even have ministers going to London to talk about what they've done for the country?
Why,
It's a
why
lot of
outside the
wastage.
country?
Outside the country.
So that's what I'm saying. A lot of things. That's why I said there are a lot of wastage on it. If they can cut down the spendings, it will go a long way to even reduce. Just like the question you asked me, if they can achieve what they're actually looking for.
Yeah,
inflation is 25. They can do that if all these things have been done. But on their own part, let them reduce their expenditure first. Yes, of course, let there be high interest rates to discourage people from borrowing. When that is done, it's going a long way to do that. Then for local products, especially food items, agricultural products, that should be subsidized. Because in the first place, if you're actually telling us you want to subsidize, you want to remove fuel subsidy, then the other community should be subsidized as well. So that will be kind of aggregate, the pains will not be much. And that is why we got everything wrong. Now the price of fuel is actually gradually going down a bit, like we said. Cost of transportation to remain the same. And when cost of transportation remains the same, the prices of goods might not change.
It won't.
Because transportation is also one of the ways to trade. Without transportation, we cannot transact business. So that is just the fact. So a whole lot needs to be done on their part. If all these policies are strictly followed, especially government spendings, if they are strictly followed, of course, but the mass production.
But then do you feel, when it comes to the place of government spendings, do you feel government has the willpower to actually reduce their spending?
Of course, yes.
Looking at the fact that, somehow I sat with a politician recently and I began to analyze the cost of competing, even to get a government office. And when he began to count costs, logically he said, do you think any Nigerian, any average Nigerian can work for 30 years and gather $1 billion naira?
No.
Salary?
No.
And I'm like, honestly, you can't even gather 50.
They borrow loans to do majority of the things.
You can't gather 200 million. So many of them borrow loans or sometimes have to bow to certain bodies to get there. So when they get there, what do you think they are going to do in the first instance? And what part of the reason why they are gathering these funds is because of the people. Because if I go and campaign, the people will not want to hear what I'm saying.
Without money.
Without cash. So once they see the cash, now what are you saying? Then from there, they vote. From vote, get office. So it's a cycle to just try to get back whatever they've made. Now, how do you think in such a political system, I made a statement that time, I said, do you think with our democratic system, democracy, last time I made that, democracy offers you more of politics than governance. Now, do you think with such a system, or because I feel most of this problem is structural.
Yeah, it is.
Extremely structural.
Of course it is.
The kind of structure we have in this country right now, it's looking like we are in a quagmire. We are just going around a maze too as well. Now, how do we even touch? Because you see these economic factors, everybody wants to be wealthy. I feel if the government spending reduces, and people can genuinely see that the government is not spending as much, it automatically passes a message to everyone that the government can cut down. You yourself do what? You see. So how do we go about this?
You see, it's quite very funny. Like I say, let me just use the word funny. Now the politician actually you spoke with is just making he's just trying to justify, giving an excuse, not
to
well
justify their actions.
On the more serious note, they're just justifying that. You see where we are going to. I so much believe to a very large extent that it's now a serious level of sensitization to the masses as per our election. Yes, I have seen places whereby they call people, get money and go and vote. They say, no, I'm not voting. The hunger is much, the sufferings are much now. And I think especially our young people, to a very large extent, their eyes are actually open. And yes, I'm seeing it that way. I'm seeing that way because I don't want us to start talking about the last election that was held. If you look at the federal level, if you look at the last election that was held, you can see youth, our young people, showed much concern towards the electoral process. I don't want to mention name. I know there were a lot of forces. There were a lot of movements
around that area.
There were a lot of movements. Youth were out there actually supporting a particular candidate. It was a strong movement in the country. It was a very, very strong movement. And even the leaders, so-called leaders, were scared of that movement. Remember, even came. I know Obaseki came out then to even say this movement. Everybody was scared that, oh, these youth are getting, the exposure is gradually coming up. I so much believe one day it will come up, everybody will be widely open, politicians will bring money to, nobody will be ready to get their money. I hope one day, I know someday.
We'll get to that stage.
Yes, I hope we'll get to that stage. But why I'm scared that we might not get to that stage is because the evil, let me use the evil they perpetrate. Do you know at times the hunger in the country is deliberately brought up so that during election we're able to give somebody who has not eaten for long, somebody is very poor and somebody very poor, we don't have a choice than receiving.
Hey God.
On a more serious note, they know what is applicable in another country. Can you go to a country and bribe somebody with how many dollars for you to vote? You cannot do that.
Definitely.
The person will not vote for you because no matter to a large extent, the person is comfortable. And that is the way governance should be. Not one person having fleet of cars when others doesn't have. Now, do you know a problem? Why you and I are scared that things like that might not even stop in a political process, buying our vote, is because there is a very wide distance between the poor and the rich. The gap is much. If you can bridge that gap, and an average man can feed himself comfortably, so what will tell you what do I need your money for? Then everybody will be looking toward the true leadership. Everybody will try to say, okay, what we needed is social amenities, basic infrastructures. Let's vote in somebody that will make this happen. But the most serious, look at the campaign promises. The campaign promises are something that should not be done. We should look beyond that. But the most serious, we should look beyond that. Are we talking about an INEC also? Why will political parties attach nomination forms to be very huge that even the reasonable ones cannot afford? The same thieves are those who are capable of affording it. Of course, they will afford. They get money, they sponsor the election, they make campaigns, this and that. And when they get there, you will not blame them. They want to recover that back. So if our electoral process, if our electoral law can be amended, I know there are a lot of amendment that is coming up, and that aspect has not been amended. Even despite the fact, I don't know if you're much aware that it's part of the electoral law. There's a restriction on amount of money a political party or a candidate should spend on election. Are they really going by that? Nobody's going by that.
Even if the law finds proof, they don't take it serious at the courts.
So if that amount of money, if that expenditure on election should be monitored, should be reduced, that even a common person, a common man can say, oh, I want to vie for this. It will make the thing very competitive. And we have good leaders who are turning up. Not the same set of people, either we like it or not, we will have the same set of people. And if care is not taken, Nigeria will still become a one-party system. Because the forces are very high, it's very much. So, in fact, it's very cumbersome. The problem is very, very cumbersome and interwoven. Those are the pain you and I, the pain we are lamenting. What we are lamenting is that the resultant effect, the burdens, falls down on the people. That is actually our concern. That is our concern, that is our headache. And they know this. They have been to other countries. They know the process on how to make Nigeria a better country. But the whole system is polluted. Our education is porous. The basic sensitization that we needed is not being given. And that is why we have people who comes down on the day of election to vote and get money.
Okay, let me ask
the whole issue is.
Let me ask this actually. Let me just ask this because I know gradually we are rounding off on the program. I was watching, just trying to study some stuffs, and I stumbled on a video by the great sage Obafemi Awolowo, and was talking about Nigeria making use of a socialist approach to attend to most of our problems. And honestly, I saw another argument from a scholar that Nigeria is not ripe for total capitalism, in the sense that private-owned companies runs totally the economy, which is a bit closer to what we are running today. Now, many people think Nigeria still runs socialist, where the government has to do a whole lot of things for us. But Nigeria right now is more into the capitalist, where we know, though the capitalism, where my own problem comes from the capitalism from the study is the fact that the major capitalists are not even those in the field. They are the politicians camouflaging.
Almost, that is exactly what that is exactly what I actually wanted to say.
Now, do you think Awolowo was right by saying for a bulk of time Nigeria should still make use of the socialist approach before we get into full-blown capitalism? Because from his argument, we are not fully, totally mature yet for capitalism. That is it. And this statement was made in the 1970s, 1960s, 1970s.
This is actually structural also from the both sides. From the both sides is structural. Structural in the sense that what? Let me use the power sector as an example. Let me use the power sector. But before I used it, you see, when we're talking about socialism, whereby government runs most of these ventures, we call it public enterprises. The motive is not always for profit making. The motive is to render essential services to members of the public at a reduced cost. Through what? Through their taxpayer, through taxpayers' money. Now you can see where the problem is complicated. Even with the socialism that is in place, to some extent, it's okay.
Even our civil service,
when I say it's not really too in place. It's not really in place as such, like before. Somehow. Like before. Now, when you talk about cost, the cost of rendering most of their services to members of the public, is it at a reduced cost? At these rates? It's not at a reduced rate. That's number one. The money that people are paying as tax, what are they being used for? You know, all this now boils down to these same corrupt practices I've been lamenting. And that is just it. And also, like you said, looking about the capitalism also, of course, those you are seeing are not really the controller. They are just the manager. We see some people beating the drums. And they run in the sense that they run it. The bottom line is that they run it very close to being a monopoly. On the most serious, whereby the government gives them charge to bring in yours and stop the others. If you actually want to run pure capitalism, yes, everybody should be given the opportunity to play the activities in the market. So far, there's going to be competition. Of course, yes. And even when they are being allowed, the activities should be subjected under the control of the government, because the poor masses, the poor people, should be at stake, should be the major focus, and that's exactly what is happening in other countries. I've seen other countries whereby a particular government, their government will invite a particular company, will invite a particular capitalist to come, and when they come in to exhibit their activities, they have laid down rules and regulations being given. You see, their major focus is always for the good of the people.
Yeah, at the end of
for the good of the people. Unlike what we are experiencing now, whereby some young people will lead a protest to a particular leader to just call the leader's attention to what a particular firm in the other public sector is doing, and the person, it's a business, they will also make their profits. It's happening there. You see that it's not really under the control. The government does not really have a say.
Control over most of this company.
They don't have a say. They don't have control. And it's because they are actually underneath, controlling their activities. It's being owned by them most often. And that's why, because of their selfish interest, they want to earn more at the detriment of the people. And that is why we're having all these issues, inflation, hardship everywhere. So a whole lot needs to be done. A whole lot needs to be done.
A whole lot actually needs to be done.
Sure.
Truthfully. Well, as we round up, do you have any parting words towards the government when it comes to meeting the target 15% for 2025?
Of course, yes. They have a lot. And as I've just said it, I'm going to repeat it again. Cutting down their expenditure. They should cut it down. Prices of food items should be subsidized. They really need to be subsidized. Like I said, what are we really benefiting from them? Is it free health? No. Are we secured? No. The education free? Is the price of education low? No. So what are we actually benefiting as a dividend of democracy? So in that, they should subsidize the prices of food on their own part. And what? They should try all they could to increase or enhance productivity. If that is done, if we are major producers of what we consume, there won't be need for glamoring the problem of inflation. On a more serious note, it's because we have less producers here in the country. We have less producers. And if that could be done on a more serious note, to some extent, there will be a kind of a developmental strides that the people will actually benefit from the government they have actually voted for. Then looking about the fiscal policies, of course, the interest rate should be high to discourage borrowing. All this just to actually see that the volume of money in circulation is reduced. Because if you have more money with you, your wants will be high. And the way you are high, and what the prayer of all these suppliers is to what? Is to produce more and for people to demand more. So these are the mechanisms they can actually put in place. If this is actually done, and if they are truthful to themselves that yes, they're actually not going to give a space, a single space for corrupt practices, we will all keep smiling. Then if that could be replaced, who knows, the price of rice you said is 50-something thousand can even turn to 20,000 naira. Then all of us can afford to buy 20 bags or 30 can afford to buy 2 bags or 3 bags and
7,000 or 5,000. I would really be happy actually, because that
many bags of rice.
Yes,
it was before 8,000 naira.
8,000, 7,000 at a time. But
So a
then
lot needs to be done.
the sad truth is that when I talk about the fact that rice is 7,000, 8,000, many Gen Zs can't actually relate, but they won't know that it's just a most recent phenomenon actually before everybody got very mature and all that. But thanks so much, Mr. Oche, for being a part of this. Really appreciate this discussion.
Thank you very much.
And we just hope that a lot of things are put in place, because honestly, I am someone that roots for the federal government. Let's see, can you meet up with 15% inflation by the end of 2025? Well, we still have to see. We're still looking at the month-by-month reviews when it comes to the place of the inflationary numbers. But then let's go for sports. After sports, we'll look straight up and do what our conclusions on Daybreak Africa. So please stay with us. We'll be right back.
Welcome back, and that was sports, and I hope you guys enjoyed sports.
Yeah, I did. I love sport. Sport is my favorite.
Congratulations. And our guests.
Yeah, today said a lot.
No, he said a lot. Yeah, he said a lot.
Talking
And we are hoping that our government will do better.
What I say, when they say government, I didn't even think the federal government needs to even stress themselves.
Because he was saying that they are also a victim.
No, honestly, the president to me is a victim. The president is a huge victim. That is why I don't blame him for most things happening. I think you see the way Nigeria is structured. If you are a leader, you are the president especially, you are doomed to fail. That's the way that the country is structured, because unless you have people who are extremely honest with you, that are in your cabinet, who are extremely honest and extremely honest towards the people and work-based. But 80% of the time, most of the people that forms the cycle of the president are just politicians like himself. For someone like me, if you ask me, Josh, if you want to be a president today, most of your appointments, who are they going to be? I will gladly put those who are politicians. But the truth is just that, due to the fact that we practice democracy and you are trying to win the majority, you have to make alliances. And part of making alliances is the fact that you have to put even the good and the bad eggs into the place. So definitely their activities are going to just put you in problem. Because honestly, I feel many of these people are not telling him the actual truth about the situations on ground. Let's just be factual. And they are doing it kind of intentionally, because they are gaining from the ignorance of the president and the people. So they are in the middle.
So who do we trust?
They are just the middlemen of the situation, and because of the fact that they are the middlemen, they have much control and all that. They are in relations to with the greedy and with everybody just making good money out of this whole thing. So honestly, we can't trust anybody.
We can't trust anybody.
But I feel we have state governors, we have local government chairmen. They can't close their eyes and say.
Even the governor, they can't be everywhere at the same time.
No, the governors
have to put people in charge.
You see,
the local government.
The governors are still closer to the people.
Sure.
They have a bulk of power There are some states that they don't earn anything and they spend high. And they're not even thinking one way that, okay, what can we do to earn? What can we do to make life easier for our people? Sometimes you don't even need much infrastructure, not like, when I mean infrastructure, beautified stuffs. The quality of life of the people matters to you. Now imagine you having a bulk of hungry people. You see, one of the things this political class don't know is that gradually people are changing. The patience level of Nigerians in 1990 is not the patience level of Nigerians in 2023.
Exactly.
Or in 2025.
2025.
And in the next 5 years, the patience level will
reduce drastically.
So you are just gradually inviting a revolution you don't want to ever experience, because that's 200 million people against just maybe 12,000 politicians. It's going to be brutal. So please do the right thing.
Do the right thing.
It's very, very
change
important.
start from you.
Yeah,
you
right
as a person.
It's very, very important.
Yes.
But then, talking about doing the right thing, tomorrow we'll still be doing more things on Daybreak Africa. And yes, my name won't change till tomorrow. Definitely Miracle's name too won't change, because she can't get married during the week.
Okay.
You take a Wednesday or a Thursday to get married.
No problem. I'll pick that.
Oh, okay. Keep that in mind. Well, my name is Ikhonede Joshua Yadeji.
And my name still remains Miracle Odunayo.
Bye for now, guys.